Cross-channel cinema, a moving reflection on mental health struggles, and a particularly Parisian documentary. That's all coming up in this week's film show. Well, for that, I'm joined by Lisa Nesselson. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Olivia.
But first, we're starting with news from the box office. Daniel Craig's final outing as 007 has smashed records in the UK, taking in its international success as well. It's had the best opening weekend in the history of the Bond franchise. That means it's the biggest movie of the year after only 4 days in cinemas, and you can catch it here in France this week. Well, speaking of which, we're starting the show on the Breton coast, where the British film industry is being celebrated at the 32nd Dinard Festival of British Film. Now, Lisa, what do you make of this festival and this selection?
Well, this is a compact but consistently wonderful event. I managed to see 9 films in 3 days, including the winner of both the Golden Hitchcock and the Audience Prize, Limbo. Shot in the stark Outer Hebrides, this is a funny comedy, dark comedy, about a group of asylum seekers stuck there waiting to find out whether they'll be granted official refugee status or deported. Now, the thrust of the film is that asylum seekers are normal people. They're just not where you'd expect them to be. It's incongruous that they're in the northernmost part of Scotland instead of Syria or Ghana, which they've managed to escape. Those bleak vistas are a wonderful backdrop for a story of hope and resilience without one speck of smarminess. I was also very impressed by Help, a harsh drama which shows the harrowing conditions in a small care home near Liverpool during the first lockdown, when there was next to no reliable information and even less protective supplies. When she realizes that almost all of the elderly residents are catching COVID and dying, one of the employees decides to try and rescue a 47-year-old man with early onset Alzheimer's.
Okay, sounds fascinating. Well, Lisa, you weren't the only one in Dinard. Our France 24 reporters were also there. Let's take a look at the report they sent us.
Creation Stories, a film on Alan McGee, the owner of a record label who signed Oasis and was influential in the 1990s. A very British story with familiar names from the iconic Trainspotting, notably its director Danny Boyle.
Danny Boyle was a god to us, basically. You know, it sometimes takes somebody with that level of weight of the industry to come along and go, right, I'm going to back this. And then just by simply putting his name to it, got us into production, basically.
Be a rebel always, because there's always something to rebel for.
If I had troubles getting this film made, I can't even imagine what it must be like for emerging talent to come through and to get the funding that would be needed to create something, you know, unique. It's just so hard, and these creative talents need more support, and the government needs to be nurturing our talent, which they're not doing enough.
At the British Film Festival of Dinard in Brittany, Brexit was in all minds. The UK has one of the world's largest film and TV industry, but the independent sector is worried.
As in terms of film funding, the loss of the media programme, of being part of the media programme, is a very big blow to cinemas, to distribution and to production. If the EU does start imposing quotas on how much is available, because now we're not part of the European economy anymore, and that could have a terrible impact.
You one of the refugees?
Winner of the top prizes in Dinard, Limbo by Ben Sharrock.
Omar, right, Omar. Don't pull up shite or rape anyone, right?
Mixing melancholy and humour, it depicts the fate of refugees in a very different way. A powerful independent film on tolerance in post-Brexit UK.
So as we saw there, Dinard's a charming little town, and this festival seems pretty relaxed and accessible.
Oh, absolutely. What I find particularly heartening about this event is that the audiences are mostly made up of local residents with a healthy sampling of film professionals. And if you subscribe to the received wisdom that moviegoers don't want to sit for tough topics or socially conscious adult dramas, well, you're wrong. There is absolutely an audience for films that are anything but escapism, that confront society head-on, as long as they do so with talent and skill, like the lineup here. And in Dinard, you may just rub shoulders with future stars. I've been going long enough that I can remember when Hugh Grant was there and also Daniel Craig, and they were just starting out.
They went on to do quite well, I believe. So next we're going to a French language film that premiered at Cannes this year. And I remember some people there reporting that they found it difficult to watch this because it deals very realistically with a family struggling with mental health issues. It's called Restless. Tell us more.
Well, we've all heard of a tortured artist, right? This is the portrait of a torturing artist. Damien, a successful painter, suffers from bipolar disorder, and it's very hard on his wife and son when he has a manic episode or a depressive episode. He doesn't want to take the lithium that can even out the extremes because, well, euphoria is an exciting state to be in. The downside is that unfettered mania is just exhausting to be around. There's a scene in which Damien gets really enthused about bringing cupcakes to his son's class at school, and you want to sink through the floor with shared embarrassment for this kid who loves his dad but does not love the way he gets when he's having an attack. Damien's wife, Layla, who runs her own interior design business, is played by multi-talented Layla Bekti. We see how much work it can be to live with and continue to love somebody with a chronic illness. Call it a chemical imbalance, call it a mental disorder, whatever you call it, it's a constant looming presence in the shared household. If you didn't know Damien had this condition, you just conclude that he's a selfish, obnoxious jerk given to mega irritating flights of fancy and horrid bouts of selfish depression.
But it is indeed more complex than that. Let's take a look at Layla Bekti and Damien Bonnard in Restless.
Il y a papa qui est à l'étang. Je sais pas ce qu'il veut faire. Quoi? Il est parti à l'étang.
Il est parti à l'étang?
Bah ouais. Il veut faire un salto, un truc comme ça.
Ils sont tes copains?
Ils sont partis avec lui.
Un salto, un salto.
Allez, allez, tu les as fait marrer, allez. Damien!
Le con, il l'a fait. Elle est super bonne. Damien, t'exagères là. Elle est bonne, venez vous baigner.
Fantastic performances from those central characters. Now, we're moving to a French documentary that won the jury prize at last year's Champs-Élysées Film Festival. The Kiosk is released this week, and it's about a kiosk, so please elaborate.
Well, this is a leisurely and intimate portrait about a Paris newsstand run by the same family for 4 generations and whose days are numbered. It's the first film by Alexandra Pianelli, who started out giving her mother a hand and using a cell phone and a GoPro camera mounted on her head, ended up spending 6 years filming in the cramped news kiosk where her great-grandparents, her grandparents, and her own parents had worked. She champions the human side of handing people things to read, exchanging pleasantries, making change, and she's attuned to the irony of using a cell phone, one of the tools contributing to the decline in printed press matter, to document the declining economics of a dying profession, that of news vendor.
Wow, it really is a part of the Parisian landscape here. Let's find out more.
2. Pourtant, je suis pas grande, hein.
Crise de la distribution de la presse, la suite. Mon marchand de journaux a toujours les boules. Les avis divergent, mais quoi qu'il en soit, mon kiosquier en a marre de se bousiller le dos, à bouger du papier que personne n'achète et sur lequel il n'a pas de pouvoir.
Toujours à la une de l'actualité en ce vendredi, les militants opposés au mariage.
Oh, quel ange là! Il y a une lumière qui vous illumine. Sortez la tête pour voir. Voilà, incroyable.
Je préfère te donner moi-même.
Oh, c'est trop mignon!
C'est de la part d'un autre, ça va pas.
Amazing use of that contained space. So this is a real zoom into a specific line of work. Did you learn anything you didn't know about?
I did, and one of them is kind of chilling. In the 6 years the director filmed, she noticed that right-wing, even extremist publications grew far more popular and that all sorts of people started asking for them. The newsstand was in the 16th arrondissement of Paris, which is inevitably described as the cosseted or wealthy 16th arrondissement, and that's not inaccurate. But the film has as recurring characters at least one homeless person, one hardworking illegal immigrant, not everybody is white, etc. I firmly believe glancing at the magazines and newspapers on display in a well-stocked newsstand is better for your eyes than scanning a feed on your phone, especially this week when certain companies may have had trouble.
Yes, indeed. A love letter to the print press, probably quite timely. Now, finally, French writer-director Christophe Honoré has a new film in cinemas, and he's also behind a 100-film retrospective at the Forum des Images here in Paris. The 3-month programme's called ABCD Honoré. Tell us what it involves.
Well, personally, I rarely like what Christophe Honoré puts on screen, and his latest film, Guermantes, is no exception. But he's definitely an artistic voice for gay men of his generation and anyone lovelorn. And in most of his work, he gets good performances out of some of France's most interesting young talents. His new film, Guermantes, was filmed in under 2 weeks with basically one location and members of France's theater troupe, the Comédie Française. The film came about because in real life, Honoré was rehearsing a play based on the Proust book, which is volume 3 of In Search of Lost Time, when lockdown made it unlikely that the play would ever be performed. After the first lockdown, the ensemble has to decide whether to continue rehearsing, even if they'll never get a chance to perform the finished play. Now, it should be fascinating to watch outstanding actors rehearsing, killing time, living together on the premises of the Marigny Theater, flirting, and more. The pitch is excellent. The film is not. But the Forum des Images has given Honoré a very nice sandbox to play in through early December. I like his taste in other people's work way more than I like his films, from Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Risky Business to films by David Cronenberg, David Lynch, or Jean-Luc Godard. The offerings are excellent.
Of course, he has excellent taste, a sort of whistle-stop education in cinema. Lisa, thank you very much for that roundup this week. We'll leave you with a glimpse of some of the 100 films at the Forum des Images, showing until December 5th. Remember, you can get more movie news on our website. We're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.
C'est beau de vivre, non?
Aime-moi moins, mais aime-moi longtemps. La vie est plus conne que les films, c'est tout. C'est bien, tout c'est dégueulasse.
Faut pas compter sur moi pour les faire valoir.
Sudan's West Kordofan region is sitting on one of the country's largest oil reserves. Chinese-Sudanese cooperation in massive oil drilling and production have caused an unprecedented humanitarian crisis.
People drink from these plastic containers used in oil production.
There's a record number of illnesses, newborns with malformations and disabilities.
And with the Chinese, no one knew what was going on, other than the negative impact people were seeing.
A rare investigation into the dark side of Sudan's oil industry on Reporters on France 24 and France24.com.